You're listening to SM Media, the #1 place for exclusive content.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Scottish Football Show right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. A very busy show this week, and we've brought two of the best guests along with us. First of all, the editor of the Kilmarnock Standard. What kind of mood are you in after the performance? Are you optimistic? Lochlin Highet, how are we doing?
It's Kelly's done it before, losing the first leg and coming back to win, so I think getting that goal back at Dens was vital, to be fair, because coming back 2 or 3-0 down would have been a pretty tall order. But no, I'm feeling all right. Just need to win the match. That's all you can ask, at home in the plastic park. So
Definitely. We're also joined by, I'm delighted to welcome Scott McDermott, the chief sports writer for the Sunday Mail. Scott, it's a pleasure to welcome you onto the show. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. How have you been? How's things been lately?
Not bad. Working from home as usual. Just been tough. That's a year, probably over a year now, working for the house. But listen, I'm not going to complain. Still getting to games. No, it's not the same, obviously, without supporters. It's a totally different experience. But I'm getting to press conferences, still getting to talk to players, getting to games. So I can't grumble too much.
Is it safe to say it's been a busy week this week?
Well, it's kind of last week for me, obviously, been with the Sunday Mail. But last week was quite busy just with the Scotland squad announcement. That was a big one during the week, and everything that kind of went round that. Spoke to Steve Clarke, obviously, after the announcement. Did an interview with Grant Hanley, who's obviously in the squad. And then Saturday with the cup final. But listen, it wasn't too bad because everything was geared towards Scotland and the cup final, so there's no firm press conferences, stuff like that. So it was a good week, and again, despite the no fans, I enjoyed the game on Saturday.
Brilliant. We'll get into that later on in the show, but we'll start off with a bit of kind of unfortunate news at the start of the week. Obviously, the incident surrounding Peter Lawwell. It's just disappointing, and it's Scotland. It just shows how low that can get at times.
Just horrible. I mean, despicable. Whether it's Peter Lawwell or anybody else. I mean, any human being that's at their own home with their family. I mean, I think there was young kids in the house as well. I mean, it's just when you hear stuff like that. I mean, it's far bigger than football. I mean, it disappoints you just from a societal point of view. You just wonder where we are, who would do such a thing. And as I say, whether it's Peter Lawwell or anybody else, horrible to read and see the pictures that we seen last week. And obviously, you hope that whoever's responsible gets caught and is dealt with appropriately. Yeah,
definitely. Lachlan, what was your thoughts on it? Obviously, an unfortunate incident.
As Scott said, it's not even to do with football. When something like that happens, it's just it's vile to see those scenes. And obviously, as Scott said again, there was young kids involved as well. It's not even anything to do with football. It's just it's hard to put into words. Really, it is. It's awful when you see things like that.
I think football people or people in sport get used to criticism and taking a bit of abuse and a bit of flack and stuff like that. And although it's no nice, usually you find a lot of people in this game, they've got a thick skin, they can deal with it. I would certainly put Peter Lawwell in that bracket. He's obviously put up with did a lot of good things, obviously at Celtic as well. But he's big enough and ugly enough to take a bit of stick when it's coming your way. But I mean, as Lachlan says again, it's out with that. I mean, it's got nothing to do with football or sport. I mean, you're talking about a guy and his family. You're talking about life and death. I mean, it could have been absolutely horrendous. If that had been more serious in terms of the explosion or the fire. So no, just as I say, really despicable. And as I say, hopefully they get who did it.
Definitely. It's another kind of shocking incident over the past kind of month or so. We'll move on to the kind of main event over the week, which was obviously Steve Clarke was picking the Scotland squad for the European Championship. 26-man squad, 3 more than usual. I'll just run through the squad quickly. We've got goalkeepers Craig Gordon, David Marshall, John McLaughlin. Defenders Kieran Tierney, Andy Robertson, Grant Hanley, Scott McKenna, Stephen O'Donnell, Declan Gallagher, Liam Cooper, Jack Henry, Greg Taylor, Nathan Patterson. Midfielders John McGinn, Callum McGregor, Scott Armstrong, Scott McTominay, John Fleck, Billy Gilmer, David Turnbull. And forwards James Forrest, Ryan Christie, Ryan Fraser, Lyndon Dykes, Shea Adams and Kevin Nisbet. Lachlan, we'll start with you. What was your overall thoughts on the squad when you heard it?
I think it's the right squad, to be honest. There's arguments for certain players maybe to be in that were just in the fringes. I'd imagine you've probably already covered soon, so I'll not go into too much in that. But I think, to be fair, I think the extra 3 bodies helped because, I don't think you could omit 3 of them really with great ease. So I think he's done a good job and he has chose the right squad overall.
Scott, obviously you probably got the news before most of us. What was your first impressions of the squad when you heard it was announced?
Positive, largely positive. A lot of guys that I wanted to see in there were picked. A few names that I would have liked to have seen in there weren't. I think you're always going to argue and debate over 2 or 3 of them. To be honest, and yours will be the same, I just think it's brilliant that we're even debating and talking about a Scotland squad for a tournament. It feels that kind of sense of anticipation, waiting for the squad to be announced. Then the kind of arguments about who's in, who should have been in, or who's not there. I think we've just missed that so much. I know I have, in terms of being at a major tournament. So I just think it's brilliant. I mean, when we did the Steve Clarke Zoom match, even he had a laugh at the first thing he kind of said to us was he's happy with the squad. And he's the kind of guy you can be honest with him. And I said, well, aye, pretty happy, but probably argue 1 or 2. But even he liked that. Do you know what I mean? And he said, look, we're all going to have an argument about 1 or 2, but he feels the balance is right. And that was the kind of key word for him. As I say, there's 1 or 2 in there. I'll still argue all day, and it's nothing against the player. I'll still argue all day that I don't see the point in Greg Taylor being in there when you've got Robertson and Tierney, and there's probably 1 or 2 others that I would have swapped for other guys. I'd like to have seen Ryan Gold in there. I think he deserved it, especially being the 26-man squad. Me personally, I would have taken Lee Griffiths almost as a kind of joker in the pack, a wild card. Listen, people have a pop at Griffiths. We know his failings, but I just think in tournament football, when you've got that size of squad, you need somebody that you can turn to, when you're needing a goal or if you get a set piece late on or whatever. And I just think Griffiths is. I wouldn't want anyone else other than Griffiths in that type of situation. So, listen, we can argue to and fro about 1 or 2 of the names, but largely really happy with it.
There's 3 debutants going that haven't played yet, but we're all really excited about them. David Turnbull, Billy Gilmer, Nathan Patterson. Lachlan, do you think it is right that they 3 go?
Yeah, I would say so. I think the only one you can argue is maybe Nathan Patterson. He's not played too many games this season, but he's probably the right back of the future. So just to have him in about the squad, kind of getting used to it, I think that was probably the right call, to be fair. And he'll probably get a couple of friendlies before it, the Luxembourg and the Holland game. Gilmore, I think that's basically was the chat all along. Is he going to get in? That was dominating all the chat, all the headlines. And again, he's going to be the future. So why not get these boys in? And especially with the 3 extra bodies as well. You've got that in the bank. That these players wouldn't have been there normally. So, and then Turnbull, he's been, probably Celtic's one of the best players this season. So he has. So he's definitely there on merit as well.
Yeah, definitely. One player I want to touch on that didn't make it was Ryan Gold. And I know we spoke about him before, but I spoke to a Portuguese journalist who's based over there, and he's talking. Obviously, he's a free agent. The likes of Porto, Benfica, Sporting Lisbon, they're all looking at Ryan Gold, and 9 Man of the Match awards Scott, he is setting the kind of world alight over there. Like, why do you think he didn't make it, and do you think he is going to go on and be a top player?
I do. I mean, I think he's a top player just now, if I'm being honest, with what he's done in the Portuguese top flight this season. I think he'll get a big move this summer. I think you're right. From everything I've heard, the big clubs in Portugal, the big four, if you like, Benfica, Sporting, Porto and Braga, have all kind of registered an interest. I know he's got offers on the table already from clubs in Europe, Spain, France, Poland, places like that. MLS clubs as well. I think Southampton, I wrote a piece on Sunday that Southampton have now kind of registered an interest, probably the first kind of English Premier League club to kind of take note. I just think people will look at the numbers that he's hit over there for a team that's been relegated. He's a free agent. He's at a really good age. He's just had the best season of his career, as fit as he's ever been. He's managed to get through this season with no major injury worries. So it'd be a great pickup for somebody on a free transfer. And I just think he's fulfilling the potential that anyone who's seen him when he was younger knew that he had. I mean, I've not seen. I don't proclaim to have seen that much of him this season. It's like the clips and the goals and the assists and that, like everybody else. But I don't need them to tell me how good a player is. I've watched him for long enough. This is just the fruition of a lot of years of hard work for Ryan Gauld, a lot of ups and downs, a few bumps in the road along the way in terms of loan moves. So listen, I expect him to get a really good move in the summer, maybe a career-changing move, and I expect him to go on and really do well. I think he's found his feet in that league. I'd probably like to see him staying in that league with one of the big clubs, because he's settled over there. He's fluent in Portuguese. I know he enjoys the lifestyle over there. So, getting back to the Scotland thing, I just think he deserved a shot. I don't know why Steve Clarke's been so reluctant to at least have a look at him. Steve Clarke's not really answered that. I don't think in the press conferences. I get the fact that the Scotland's midfield is our best area, and if the manager thinks he's got midfielders better than Ryan Gauld, I've got absolutely no problem with that. Steve Clarke knows players better than me. My biggest issue is that he hasn't been brought into a squad to have a look at, in training, or the past couple of squads you could have called him in, big squads where guys were called up late, and I don't really understand the reluctance when he's playing in one of Europe's top, or a top European league. I definitely think it was worth a look.
Do you think, obviously, he went to, was it Hibs a couple of years ago on loan and it didn't really work out? Do you think that's maybe played a part in Steve Clarke's decision, or is that it? Do you think that's maybe overthinking it?
No, possibly. I mean, I'd like to think Steve Clarke delved into it a bit deeper than that. I mean, he went to Hibs with Neil Lennon. I think he played initially. I'm sure he picked up a bad hamstring injury at Celtic Park in a game and was out for a good period of time. By the time he came back, Paul Heckingbottom was in charge. Yeah. Things had changed at Hibs. I think he played the kind of last couple of games of the loan. Listen, it didn't work out for him for one reason or another. But I mean, you can't just discard people. I mean, look at Glenn Middleton on Saturday, in the cup final. What he's done at St Johnstone. I mean, he had a couple of loan moves to Hibs again, ironically, in Bradford City, where didn't set the world alight. So it's got to be the right move. It's got to be the right time. Circumstances need to be right. I don't think Hibs and Ryan Gauld was a good fit at the time. He's gone back, had a brilliant season with Firenze last year, Player of the Year, gets them up, and then again this season, although they've went down, he's been playing against the top sides in Portugal and really showing up well. And as you touched on at the start, it's not just us saying it as Scots and just desperate for him to. No, he's had acclaim from the journalists in Portugal and websites over there and newspapers and stuff. So I think he's been really, really unfortunate. I know it would have meant a lot to him to get in there, and I think probably. When I see, it was probably a toss-up between him and Turnbull to get into the squad. And that's, again, what I said at the start. I've got no issue with Turnbull. I think he deserves to be deserves to be in there for what he's did. I suppose others, maybe John Fleck. Again, I really like John Fleck as a player, really like him. But I'd have probably taken Gold ahead of him for tournament football in terms of really making an impact. I would have had him in. But listen, that's just my preference. What do we know?
Lachlan, are you a fan of Ryan Gold?
I was Scott's. I was about to use Scott's final point there. Like a John Fleck, there's a lot of players that can play that role that John Fleck's going to play, whereas I think Ryan Gold's quite unique in his style of play, especially the form he's been on. He's, the team he's with, it's not as if they're up the top end of the table either, but he's still, setting the world alight, is the phrase that was using. That's fair enough. He is. He's getting spoke about all over the world, and as you were saying, there's clubs all over the world wanting him. He's been fantastic, and obviously his loan spell at Hibs didn't work out, but I think he's probably learned for that, and it's probably helped him mature. So in a way, it's probably helped his career, having that kind of disappointing spell over here, and he's obviously got his head down, worked hard, and the benefit of that's how he's playing. And I think, as Scott was saying, I think Steve Clarke could have at least had him in, having a look at him to see how he copes, training with Champions League winner Robertson, stuff like that, because he's not had that experience of the big, playing with big kind of players like that. But he's playing against Porto, Benfica, Sporting Lisbon. These are all big teams, and he's playing well. So I think he's definitely worth at least a look at, and I think I would have probably had the man over the likes of John Fleck and James Forrest. Like, he's a huge player, obviously, but he's no played much this season due to injury. So surely somebody like Ryan Gold, who's been top performing all season, should, in theory. I know James Forrest has been huge for Scotland. I'm not saying he's no, but when you look at it, who's played this season, who's played well this season, Gold's up there, so I definitely think he deserved a spot somewhere.
I just think tournament football, Scott, you need guys that are going to give you that something a wee bit different. I mean, Steve Clarke said to us last week at the squad announcement, he admitted himself that he probably, his exact words to us were that there could be between 8 and 10 players of the 26 who don't actually get off the bench, don't go on the pitch. He said, but I hope they appreciate being there, and they appreciate being part of a tournament. And I get that. You might only have 3 games, so you're going to go with your strongest 11. You're not going to deviate from it too much, apart from maybe tactical tweaks or a couple of injuries. But to me, that makes it all the more important that when you look to the bench for something, you've got guys that Lachlan says are a bit different, a bit unique, and can maybe just give you something. And that's where the same argument goes for Griffiths in a different way. But I think if we were looking for somebody to open a team up, if it was tight and you needed that final pass, that killer ball, that big assist, then Gold has proven this season that's what he can give you. So that's the kind of frustrating thing for me. Again, I understand about Fleck and Turnbull and others that are in there. I'm not complaining. These guys have been brilliant for Scotland and are really good players playing the Premier League. But as I said, just my personal preference. I think tournament football, you need to look at the bench and think who's going to give us something different. I think Gold might have done that.
That's it. Sorry, Scott. At the end of the day, you look at your bench. You're not going to bring John Fleck on to change the game. That's just the reality of it. And that's what you're saying. Whereas Ryan Gold would have brought you that star quality. He is. He's a star. It's
the same way. It's the same way on social media. And a few people, when I kind of said what my squad would be, and I didn't have Kevin Nisbet in it, and I obviously had Griffiths there.
Aye.
But my argument, I like Kevin Nisbet again. No qualms with him being in there, and he's been terrific this season for Hibs. But I don't care what anybody says. If we're 1-0 down to England at Wembley with 10 minutes to go, and you're looking for a goal, if it's Kevin Nisbet or Lee Griffiths, I'm wanting Lee Griffiths every day of the week. And I'll tell you something else. If you're an England player or an England fan who even if you've not watched Scottish football, if you're looking over to see who's coming on and it's Kevin Nisbet, it's a kind of shrug of the shoulders. If it's Lee Griffiths, they're thinking, oh, well, we know what this guy can do. Now, I know that was a few years ago, and you can't live on kind of past glories, but I just think, again, tournament football, late on, needing somebody to change it for you, I would have Griffiths over somebody like Nisbet. And by the way, Nisbet and Griffiths could have been in the squad because there's enough room for them. But that's the argument for me.
I'm a huge fan of Kevin Nisbet, but I keep going back to something Craig Brown told me a few years ago. It was really interesting. He says when he didn't take Ali McCoist to France, he said, as soon as I done it, I regretted it, because if you're needing a goal when you've got a bench and you've got Ali McCoist there, you feel like as if that could be all it takes. Now, Lee Griffiths this season, obviously we've seen the kind of problems he's had and things like that, but there's a couple of games where he's come on and won Celtic games.
Well, I was at Pittodrie a couple of weeks ago in the midweek game where he's been out the picture for a while. They're not thinking about him. Comes off the bench last 10 minutes and gets the equaliser. So, at the back post, getting away from his man. Aberdeen defended brilliant that night. Griffiths was only on a short time, and he just gets that yard of space at the back post. Listen, that's, whether you like it or no, that's just the type of player he is. We'd all love to see him being 100% fit, flying for Celtic every week, back to getting 25, 30 goals. He's not in that place at the moment, but it's a 26-man squad. I mean, you've got to have room, I think, for somebody like that. And again, you might not use him. You might be one of the 8 to 10 that Steve Clarke's talking about that doesn't get off the bench. But honestly, if we're needing a goal, even in the other games, Croatia, Czech Republic, and it's late on and you can throw somebody on, he's the guy I would want to put on.
Yeah, I do. I did expect him to go. I thought, like, I looked through my squad. I didn't think he would go, but I was hoping he would, because I think he's that kind of guy you need. Even I go back to that St Johnstone game at this kind of start of the season where Celtic were really, really poor. He came on and won the game and completely changed the way. Like, that's what he can do. But there's a couple of kind of ones before we move on to the Scottish Cup final. Obviously, the central defence, I think, for the past few years has been a problem for Scotland. We've got Hanley, McKenna, Gallagher, Cooper, Hendry. Who do you think starts? Obviously, we think they're going to go back 3. Tierney's going to be in there. Who do you start alongside him? It's an interesting one.
I think Tierney definitely starts left of a back 3. I think now Hanley starts centre of the back 3. He came into the last squad, played every minute of the 3 games, has had a brilliant season by all accounts with Norwich in terms of getting up to the Premier League. So the spot that's up for grabs is obviously right centre back. We know McTominay can do a job in there, and we know what he brings because he gives you that ability on the ball. He's better than MD we've got. Better than any defender we've got at playing out for the back because he's a natural midfielder, obviously. I think McTominay's just such a good player. He could pretty much play anywhere, to be honest. But
I think if Jack was in the squad, I think McTominay would have played defence. But now I think it's different.
Might be right. I think you're right. I think McTominay will now play in midfield with Jack and McLean there.
No.
I think McTominay has to play in midfield. So there's a spot up for grabs there, right centre back, and it'll be interesting to see who gets it. I mean, Declan Gallagher has been a wee bit unlucky. I mean, I was probably at the start of Declan Gallagher's Scotland career, I was questioning why he was there, whether he was going to be good enough. But in those few Nations League games that got us to the playoff games that got us to the Euros, Gallagher was outstanding. He was brilliant in Serbia that night up against Mitrovic. So he's probably been unfortunate. Maybe a lack of game time at Motherwell due to injuries and other things that he didn't play in the last camp. But he'll be a contender. Obviously, Hendry got a wee chance the last time. Again, probably gives you a wee bit more ability in terms of playing out for the back. But that spot is definitely up for grabs. And I don't even know if Steve Clarke will have decided yet who's going to play there.
Yeah, definitely not. Right, Lachlan, we're going to put you both in the spot. Will Scotland qualify out of this group?
Yes.
Scott, what's your thoughts?
I need to be positive. I need to be optimistic. I'm going to say yes. We'll squeeze through. We'll squeeze through. England will top the group. We'll squeeze through in second.
Is it top 2 through? Is it just as simple as that?
Top 2 and third place, fourth and third. I think 4 third place teams get through. So,
Right.
Aye, I think so. Then I think we'll at least be a best third place. Aye.
The first game's crucial, obviously.
Aye.
Home to the Czechs at Hampden. Obviously, they'd love the place to be bouncing. 50,000 people in there. I think if we had that, I would really fancy us strongly, just because I always fancy us when you've got that home crowd.
Do you think we will have 10,000 there? I think that obviously the situation's going to change the past couple of weeks, but do you think there will be a crowd there?
I think there'll be 12,000 there, but I don't know how many will be Scotland fans. That's the only thing. Out of that 12,000, so I mean, it's going to be really different. It's going to be really different. But I think you need to get off to a flyer in that game. You can't lose that first game, and you need to hope. It sounds ridiculous, almost dismissing Croatia, team with Modric and people like that in it, but you're just hoping Croatia maybe just past their best a wee bit. Do you know what I mean? They're definitely not the team they were a few years ago, obviously, when they were beating England at the World Cup. Still hugely difficult for us, but we need to be optimistic, need to be positive, and let's hope we can get through for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on to the game on Saturday at Hampden, the Scottish Cup final. St Johnstone won the double. Shaun Rooney with another cup final goal as he beat Hibs 1-0. An unbelievable achievement for St Johnstone. Scott, you were at the game. What was your overall takeaways for the game?
Oh, St Johnstone were deserved winners. There's no doubt about that. I mean, if you take Hibs first, just really disappointing for Hibs. Just big players.
What went wrong?
I don't know. Just big players didn't turn up on the day. I went into the game thinking, knowing fine well what St Johnstone were like, and you can rely on St Johnstone probably to give you a performance pretty much every time they show up. But I just thought, Hibs will have that wee bit extra quality. After I was at the semi-final against Dundee United, and Nisbet and Doidge and Boyle were probably the difference, in getting them there. And I'm thinking, if they turn up again, they'll just be that bit too strong for St Johnstone. But they're a team you should just never write off. Great mentality, so strong defensively. I think they've got a brilliant manager. Callum Davison. I like him because he's a great guy first and foremost, but he's proven to be a really great manager. He's brilliant for us to deal with in the press. So I was really pleased for him, especially. But I don't know many of the St Johnstone players personally, but they seem like a really brilliant bunch. There's a real togetherness about them. As I say, Davison's kind of fostered that, real kind of resilience and mentality, and obviously he's sorted the defence out. The back three again were outstanding, and Hibs front players just won in the game. So St Johnstone thoroughly deserved it. Could and probably should have won by more. And Rooney again, what can you say about him? Two winners and 2 cup finals. It's just ridiculous for a right back. And he's some character as well. We got to interview him after the game, and all he could talk about was getting out in the beers, basically, and enjoying his summer. You've got to love that. Brilliant for them. Phenomenal achievement. We'll probably never see it again. I don't think a provincial club, maybe in my lifetime, winning two trophies in the one season. So amazing achievement for St Johnstone.
Definitely. Lachlan, Callum Davidson obviously has won both cups. Just how big an achievement is that for a manager who's his first year on the job? How big an achievement is that?
Oh, it's incredible. He's got a lot to live up to now. How did he improve that season? But it's amazing. It just shows you it's only the second time it's ever happened. A team outside the old firm winning the double, and I think even then that was Aberdeen, who are a huge club, especially back then. It's just incredible. Your first season as management, it couldn't go any better. And the fact, I think they showed their character as well by even getting into the top 6, because they were down they were bottom of the league in October or November, I think I'm right in saying, and And even then, it went right to the wire, getting the top six. I know they had to rely on St Mirren dropping points, I think, in the last game, but they did everything they could to get those points. And I think they were on a good run as well to actually seal the points that they needed. And I think that just shows their character. And then to get through two cup finals, pretty unfazed as well. Like, they're just incredible. Like, the spirit they've got, it's just amazing. Like, in Callum Davidson, I've not had any dealings with him. Just we've been at Kilmarnock and stuff. But he's I don't know how he's done it. He's obviously took something at the Tommy Wright playbook. But no, it's incredible. He's done a great job, and he's a great guy for what I've seen as well in interviews and stuff, and he fully deserves it. Absolutely.
No, what I love about it, Scott, I love the fact that his first year as a manager, he's went in there, he's decided on a formation, he's decided on a way of playing, a system, and he's stuck at it. And I love guys that build for the back first and foremost, because as much as I love to see attacking football and flair and teams going forward as much as the next guy, but MD, if you know football, you can't do anything unless you're solid at the back. And when St Johnstone were bottom of the league at the start of the season, they couldn't score a goal. People were saying the strikers weren't good enough. Kane wasn't good enough. Stevie May was finished. Callum Hendry wasn't good enough. But Davison just stuck to that shape. He drilled them. He's drilled them so meticulously that now that back three are just flawless in most of the games. Rotates the wing backs occasionally, rotates the three in midfield, and then that playing one off the front. And that's the thing. Even months ago, when you're thinking strikers aren't that great, he would have known that as long as I sort it out at the back, eventually these guys will get chances and they'll start scoring goals. And that's the way it's worked out. I mean, it's been absolute textbook the way he's done it. No all managers pull it off, but Callum's done it brilliantly.
Definitely. The Browns deserve credit as well, obviously, but like sticking back, they stopped by Tommy Wright. Obviously, they won a Scottish Cup with that, but they gave Callum Davidson a chance. Obviously, it was there at the club with Tommy Wright, but they deserve a lot of credit as well.
They do, because we've seen it before with assistant managers. I know Callum Davis went away and then came back, but sometimes it doesn't work when you just think that Tommy Wright's left. We just get to his assistant. It doesn't always work out. But again, I like the way Callum Davison. He took a gamble by going down south, and leaving Tommy Wright, and going to explore different things, going to work with Gary Rowett at Millwall and Stoke, and doing at that level, learning under a different coach. Gary Rowett will have been totally different, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And his methods compared to Tommy Wright. So he's kind of almost went away and done his apprenticeship, and then he's felt he was ready, obviously, to take on that job. And being an ex-player and having been there under Tommy, winning the Scottish Cup, a bit of pressure on him to go and do well. But I mean, as Lochlin says, I mean, where do you go? Where does he go for him? And I said that to him after the game on Saturday. I said, how do you emulate this? How do you top it? I mean, he couldn't do anything but laugh. He just said, I think I'll just need to go to Portugal for a year and disappear. And that, honestly, I mean, you feel as if he'd be as well just chucking it now, because it's never going to get. It can never get any better, surely. But all joking aside, he's got Europe now to look forward to, which is brilliant for them. And I think obviously he'll want to try and go and challenge a bit higher up the league. And obviously next season they've got two trophies to defend. Never thought I'd hear myself saying that about St Johnstone.
Brilliant. We'll move on to the playoffs. Obviously, this is where we bring Lochlin in and kind of bring him down to earth a wee bit. But Dundee obviously 1-2-1 in the first leg. My overall thoughts on the game were Kilmarnock were as poor as they've been all season defensively. Dundee were really good and should have won. But Kilmarnock, they dug deep and got that goal. And I think that it gives them a slight advantage going into the game. But what was your overall thoughts on? Obviously, you follow Kilmarnock all season, but I thought the first half hour Kilmarnock were as poor as they've been all season. Just that negligence at the back that's been shown all season.
I like until most of the game. It was honestly one of Kelly's worst performances of the season. That's fair to say. I think even Tommy Wright would agree with that. It was just looking at the game, you didn't know who was the Premiership team. That's what Dundee looked like the Premiership team. I mean, you wouldn't have thought, Kelly are the team fighting for their Premiership lives. And I think Kelly are actually in decent form, surprisingly, as well, which is bizarre getting into a relegation playoff. But they're just so slack at the back. Both goals were so preventable. Like the first goal, it's as if nobody wanted to take the man on out in the wing, and then you seen Charlie Adam teeing up that pass for about 5 minutes. It felt like you just knew the ball was coming to him, and he was pinging it down that left wing, to the right back. Just so preventable. And then the second goal, it's as if I feel as if Kelly were probably going to come out firing in the second half, but I mean, you concede 60 seconds in, just caught napping, and Gary Dicker, he should be the captain inspiring the team on to winning this game, like, because he's been there before as well. He was there in 2016. He should be geeing the boys up, but he's making mistakes. Like, I know mistakes happen, of course they do, but in a game like that, your captain should be leading by example, really. And it could easily have been 4-0, 5-0. Paul and Doyle had some good saves, as much as they didn't cover himself in glory with maybe both the goals. He had some big saves, and the tie could have been over after 60, 70 minutes, but Kelly got that goal, 14 minutes to go or whatever it was. And if they'd have scored again, it would have been an absolute miracle. But, they are, as you say, they've got an advantage now, because all they have to do to at least take it into extra time is win the game. And, you're playing at home against Dundee. You should be expecting to win that in 90 minutes. So if they win by 1, obviously it goes to extra time. But if they win by 2, happy days. But no, it was poor. It was poor. Fair play to Dundee though. I'm not taking anything away for them. They were good, and James McPike played an absolute blinder. You saw how they were setting up before the game, and they were just trying to nick a goal, and it worked perfectly. So it did.
Scott, obviously we've heard the phrase Kyle Lafferty has been so vital since he's come into Kilmarnock, but they need more than Kyle Lafferty here. I think you can't rely on one. I know I've said many times on this show, I think at his best he's probably the best player outside Old Firm in the league. I do honestly believe that, but at times I think Kilmarnock, just without him and Burke as well, they're flat.
That would be the worry for Kilmarnock getting into the second leg. That if Lafferty doesn't turn up, then where are the goals? Where's the inspiration coming from? That was certainly the case the other night. I was at the game, and I was surprised. Like Lochlin, I went into it thinking, Kilmarnock was too much for Dundee. They were going into it in decent form. Lafferty had been flying. Even Burke and Pinnock in particular had been really good getting into it as well. But Dundee were excellent again. Should have won by more. And as Lochlin touched on it, the big thing for Kelly now is how vulnerable they look at the back. I've said for a long time now they've had a real issue with the keepers. Because I don't think either Doyle or Danny Rodgers have covered themselves in glory. I don't think they've been good enough this season. I think that's partly the reason why. Listen, they've had loads of problems, but that's certainly been one of them. They've not had a top keeper that they could rely on to make big saves at important times. So I think that's an issue for them. I think the centre of defence is an issue for them. And Dundee, to be fair to them, look as if they've got goals in them. They looked hungry the other night. I thought they adapted. The conditions were terrible, by the way, atrocious. But Dundee adapted to them so much better. As I say, far hungrier, 1 second balls, 1 headers, tackles. Just seemed to want it a lot more than Kelly, and that surprised me, I must admit. But that goal has got them back in it and given them a real chance, and they would obviously expect to go and beat Dundee at home on the pitch. But looking at Dundee, I definitely think they'll score, because I think Kelly are so vulnerable at the back and in goal. So it's going to be a fascinating second leg. If you'd have said to me before the first game, who do you think? I'd have said Kelly all day long. But I have to say, I now think Dundee, are big favourites, and I expect them to score and win the tie.
It's going to be really interesting. But like Lachlan, what are you hoping for tomorrow night? We've heard there. I totally agree. I think Dundee will score. I think the Kilmarnock just are so sloppy at the back. But what are you hoping for?
A resounding victory, 4-0 same as Falkirk. I think it's crucial Kelly get an early goal, at least in the first 10-20 minutes, just because Dundee, the longer it goes, 0-0 or whatever, or say they nick a goal, they'll be naturally sitting back, and I don't know if Kelly's got enough to break through that, especially 2 or 3 times, because as Scott says, Dundee are, the chances are they'll score, and then that means Kelly need to score 3, like if they're going to win in 90 minutes, taking it into extra time, and a team that's sitting back, put 3 by them, it's no easy. It's hard enough scoring 1 in that situation. So I think an early goal is massive, and it's the old cliche that the next goal is the most important, and it is. If Dundee take the lead, Kelly will be in big bother. So an early goal, and they need Lafferty to turn up, as you were saying. The thing is, Dundee marked him out the game on Thursday.
I thought they'd done a really good job on him, actually.
The defensive was brilliant. Like, Lafferty didn't, obviously there's the thing he didn't turn up, but he didn't get the chance to turn up. And that's when you're relying on your Pinnocks, your Kilties, your Burks to then penetrate so that they can take the pressure off Lafferty. Then that's when Lafferty gets his chances. And just they were so poor, Burke's been great all season. Pinnock's been good lately. Kilty's been good lately, but on Thursday they just didn't turn up at all.
I thought there was a wee bit of complacency about Kelly the other night. It was almost like they went up there thinking, we're in good form. We've got Lafferty. He'll get us a goal or 2. Dundee themselves aren't great at the back. I just got that impression. Obviously the weather didn't help. But I mean, everything they did was in front of Dundee. It was passive. It was a bit laboured. I mean, I don't know what they were they just thought things would happen for them. Whereas Dundee actually went out and made things happen. Whether it was Mullen up front, giving the 2 centre-backs a torrid time, whether it was Charlie Adam getting on the ball, making things happen. I thought James McPike did brilliantly with Adam just getting McGee and Byrne in beside him, for his legs, basically, just getting the legs in beside him in the middle of the park and just letting him go and do what he does. I thought tactically McPake got it spot on. So as I say, I'm really looking forward to the second leg. I think it'll be fascinating. I agree with Lachlan. If Kelly score early, it'll be a massive boost for them, and that'll be a big test of Dundee's kind of strength of character, whether they can deal with that, because they will come under pressure. But the longer it goes at 0-0, or if Dundee score, then I think it could be curtains for Kelly.
Definitely. Kilmarnock, obviously 2 seasons ago, Lachlan, I'm keen to get your thoughts on this, because I've kind of been thinking about this a lot the past couple of days. This is a Kilmarnock team 2 years ago who finished 3rd, and obviously we know Stevie Clarke was unbelievable at Kilmarnock. The Alessio experiment, obviously the European result was a big one, but do you think that, how bad would it be for Kilmarnock town, if Kilmarnock were to lose their Premiership status? Obviously, as long as I can remember, Kilmarnock have been in the top flight. Like, how disappointing would it be if they were to lose that?
I've been a Kelly fan kind of all my life. I've never really had that, obviously. But it's 28 years I've been in the top flight, so that's longer than I've been alive, which is maybe makes you feel older, I don't know. But
you must be older than 28. Come on,
I'm younger than you, I think.
No, but seriously, it would be devastating for the town, the club, folk behind the scenes, because I think when finance come into it, people will ultimately lose their jobs over this, and that's the saddest thing, because of COVID, like, the club's running in a skeleton staff as it is at certain parts of it, and a year of no fans topped by relegation, it would just be devastating. Like, they seem to come out of these battles like 5 times. They've avoided relegation since coming up in '93, but you just worry, is this the time now that their time's up? And it would just be devastating. But I think it wouldn't be as bad as it maybe would have been the likes in 2010 if they went down, because
Yeah.
the club were really in bother at that point if they were going down. I think they'll be all right in that sense, future wise. But when will Kelly come back up? They're not going to.
Do you think that could happen though? Do you think they're that type of team that couldn't just kind of bounce back up like the Hearts have done and things like that? Do you not think they've got that enough kind of resources to do that?
I think the issue is they've only got 4 players in contract for next season. And so how many of the big players are going to stay on? Like your Lafferty, as much as he said he would love to stay, I think realistically he doesn't stay till he go down. I think that's, as much as he loves Tommy Wright and being close to home, like say Hearts or somebody will offer him a wad and he goes back there, and other big Kelly need a clear out no matter what league they're going to be in, but it'll be easier to do that and rebuild in the Premiership, whereas in the Championship, they're then attracting League One players maybe that are out of contract, lower end Championship players, and then they quickly become a Championship team rather than Hearts, who went down, retained most of their squad, and it was a case of, right, let's just get back up and don't worry about it. I just don't think Kelly will have that in them, which is sad to say, but
Scott, do you think, obviously, we've spoke about Steve Clarke, and something interesting you said about Carl Davidson as well, that he's reached that peak. Like, do you think Kilmarnock reached that peak under Stevie Clarke, and since then it's been a case of it's just been a free fall? Like, obviously, the Alessio thing, I think, is a keen story in itself. Like, I don't think he'd done that bad a job, but obviously the European result kind of hung over him. Do you think it kind of falls back to even then at that?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Steve Clarke appointment and it was like the perfect storm. Almost, he was available. He'd been out of work a long time. He was keen to come back. It was kind of his club, if you like, coming back to Ayrshire. I mean, you don't want to say Kelly got lucky because he still had to go and get him and appoint him, but it was the perfect storm for him at that time. And he obviously did a fantastic job there. And as you say, it just shows you that when you lose that, the next couple of decisions need to be right. And if they're not right or you don't get them right, then it can quickly be a kind of downward spiral. They took a big gamble going with a foreign coach. I think it's whether you like it or not, any Scottish club that goes with a foreign coach, I think, is taking a gamble. Fans expect. Scottish fans are renowned for their patience in terms of waiting for a culture to change and a style of play to change. They just want to see results instantly. And I think the difficult thing with that was you went for Steve Clarke, where it's that kind of pragmatic approach, that kind of almost kind of defensive style where I think Alessio wanted to be a bit more expansive and bring in some more foreign players or whatever. So it was a really difficult transition, and obviously it didn't work out. And then you go to Alec Dyer, who I really like, and I think's a really good coach. But a bit like I was saying about Callum Davison, but it doesn't always work with the number twos coming in. And I kind of, again, nothing against Alec Dyer, but when he got the job, you kind of thought, is that really the right road to go down? No, you're going to get kind of Steve Clarke's right-hand man, but it's not going to be the same. No, he's no Steve Clarke. I think the strength of the Steve Clarke appointment was having him as manager and having Dyer there as his assistant. No, it's just that partnership seemed to work. So again, that was a bit of a gamble, and it hasn't paid off. And that's, I think, why they find themselves in this position. And as Lochlin says, I think it's no gimme now that you're going to come straight back up for the Championship. No, I know it's not like a few years ago when you maybe had Hearts, Hibs, even Rangers down there, Dundee United, teams like that. But even if Kelly went down this season, you get Hamilton, Dunfermline, Raith Rovers, Queen of South. It's definitely not a gimme, especially when, as Lochlin says, you don't know what the squad makeup's going to be like. He's right. Lafferty won't be there in the Championship. I mean, if Kelly go down, Lafferty will have a queue of Premiership clubs kind of waiting to try and take him because of his recent form. So it would be a huge rebuilding job, big reality check for Kelly, and it might take him a few years to get back up.
Yeah, definitely. Morton and Edinburgh City Morton and Dumbarton, kept their status in their respective leagues. Morton with an impressive 3-0 win over Airdrie, and Dumbarton obviously beating Edinburgh City. Scott, how big results were they for Gus McPherson and Jim Duffy?
Big results, but big managers, experienced managers. Didn't expect anything less. I've known both of them a long time, and the jobs that they did going way back to Jim at Dundee and Gus at St Mirren and stuff like that. So I mean, real experience. I think that's what you need in that kind of playoff situation. I do always feel for the team who's trying to get up, the kind of lower league team. I just think, listen, we could talk about it all day the way the playoffs are set up, but it's definitely in favour of the club up above. And you just always fancy them to have the edge, and obviously that's what's happened. But no, with Gus and Jim Duffy, always expected them to get through their ties.
Yeah, definitely. The big story today, obviously, Kelty Hearts are up in the SPFL. Brilliant result for Barry Ferguson and Bob Malcolm and Kelty, respectively. Lochlin, how big a result was that for Kelty Hearts?
Oh, massive. I was up there maybe a couple of years ago. Kelly under 20s were playing in the Turnocks, whatever, Wafer Cup. It's a great wee setup. It is. It's obviously they're an ex-junior team, and they've just showed so much ambition. I think they were one of the first clubs to take the plunge and jump over to the Lowland League, and it's great to see that it's paid off for them. And Barry and Bob, they're good guys. They're good football guys as well. So they've taken a bit of a plunge as well. Taking that job on, and they've obviously seen the potential and the ambition of Kelty to get into the leagues, and it's great. And there was all the talk this year they're going to miss out in the playoffs again, because there was chat about Brecon not being in a playoff again, which I think last year there was fair enough arguments for it, possibly. But I think if they were denied this year again, it would have just been bouldering criminals. So it would. But so it's good that they got their chance. And Brecon, at the end of the day, they've came bottom 4 seasons in a row in whatever league they've been in. So they had to prove that they deserve to stay in the league, and ultimately Kelty did the job, and it's good. I'm kind of one of these, as a neutral, I just like seeing a new team and about the leagues. It's like Brecon, they finished bottom. It was the same when East Stirling went down. How many years did they come bottom? It's just nice to see a team a bit of ambition to come up, and Kelty will come up and straight away they'll be wanting to win the League Two as well. They're not going to come up and be happy to be there, and I think it just ultimately makes the leagues and the setup more interesting.
Definitely. Scott, how big an achievement is that for Barry and Bob and the whole town of Kelty?
It's massive. I'm pleased for Barry in particular. I mean, I got to know him a wee bit through him being a record columnist, Daily Record columnist. I got to speak to him a few times, and I remember when he first took the job, speaking to him, and I remember him telling me about just the kind of overhaul of players, the shifting players. He had to get so many guys out. He's obviously trying to get people in, and he's got a budget to work with, and it's done at that level. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, having a wee bit of admiration for him, thinking, well, this guy's done what he's done in the game. He must be, he's not short of cash, obviously. I mean, why is he bothering with us? Do you know what I mean? But it's just his love for football, love for coaching now, trying to make players better, trying to get success. We all know he's a winner. He's certainly a winner as a player. So I admire him for that. And listen, of course, they've spent a few quid. People expected them to go and get up through the playoffs, but you still need to go and do it. It certainly wasn't a gimme. And they've went and achieved that. I agree with Lochlin. I think it's great seeing a new club coming up. Feel for Brecon, obviously, but it doesn't seem that long ago. Brecon won the championship a few years ago. Incredible kind of demise. And again, we go back to what we were talking about previously, making poor decisions at kind of crucial times. And I think even when you go back to Brecon getting rid of Mark Wilson and Simon Donnelly, which wasn't that long ago, I know results weren't great, but I know Mark was trying to turn things around. He was trying to implement change. He could see kind of small signs of improvement. And I genuinely think if they'd have just stuck to their guns, they might have got themselves up the table and avoided that playoff. But they took the plunge, decided to get rid of him. Obviously, Michael Payton came in, kind of player manager, and it hasn't worked out. So you feel for them, but no, please for Barry Ferguson. I think Barry's got a lot to offer, given what he did in the game as a player, the experiences he had. I mean, it's always surprised me that there hasn't been a role for him at Rangers. Obviously, the club he's synonymous with. I just think a guy with that winning mentality, that personality, again, what he achieved, it's always surprised me that Rangers have never found a role for him. But he's not away and done his own thing. He was obviously at Clyde. He's took the opportunity at Kelty and it's paid off for him. So really pleased, and I agree with Lochlin. I mean, they'll come up. I don't doubt they'll spend more money in the summer trying to improve that squad again, and they'll want to give League Two a right good go.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Scott, you've spent 15 years at the Daily Record and the Sunday Mail, right? I'm going to put you in the spot here. You obviously broke a few exclusives in your time. What's the kind of ones that stick out to you?
Exclusive stories. God, you have put me in the spot. Listen, probably just various kind of transfer things that you get wind of early. You get right, or you get a big interview that you're really happy with and kind of has an impact, and people talk about. Or even if you're working, getting to work at big games. And you get that kind of back page on a Sunday, the big Saturday games. That's when you get the real buzz for it. In terms of highlights, I think I've been so lucky getting to travel all over Europe, to America, Canada, covering Scotland and covering clubs, right for Scotland under 19s, 21s up to the national team and stuff like that. And probably highlights, I went to the European Championships in 2016 in France. I covered the group stages, the first kind of major tournament I had worked at. That was brilliant, just being part of a tournament that size. You kind of realise the kind of magnitude of it, going to different stadiums. I went to England v Wales, for instance. I think it was in Lille, if memory serves me right, which was a brilliant game, obviously. So stuff like that, Champions League finals, I've been really lucky. It was great. When the Champions League final moved from a midweek to a Saturday, it was brilliant because somebody had to go and cover it for the Sunday papers. And I've been lucky enough to do, I think I've done 3 or 4 finals now, but the highlight was a couple of years ago in Madrid when Liverpool beat Spurs. And I was the only Scottish guy there that night. So to see Andy Robertson winning it, see a Scottish guy winning it, and standing in that mix zone after the game, I mean, it was late. Honestly, get my boss phoning me every 10 minutes. Where's the quotes? Just had to wait for Andy Robertson. I mean, he's the only guy I wanted, and eventually he obviously came out and obviously kind of recognised me for Scotland squads and all that. So I think he was pleased to see a Scottish guy in there, and of course you get the interview, and it was quite emotional, if I remember right, talking about his dad and stuff, and obviously what he'd achieved. So yeah, nights like that are brilliant. That's where you get the real thrill. And just as I say, just travelling and interviewing footballers that you kind of grew up watching and idolising. The one guy I always wanted to interview was Paul Gascoigne, and I hadn't done it. Up until a couple of years ago, and then he was in Glasgow, and I managed to go and interview him. People at Mo Johnson as well, did a piece for Sunday Mail with Mo Johnson when they came back to Glasgow for a wee bit. It was just before an Old Firm game. I managed to get him, and then obviously when you're covering the games in Europe, the real kind of big names like Iniesta and Gattuso and people like that. I mean, that's, as I say, you go for years watching these people, and then you can't believe you're sitting there with a dictaphone interviewing them. So, no, really, really, really lucky. I mean, I think you all know as well, the industry's changing all the time. In many ways, it's getting more difficult. This year's probably been the most difficult with COVID, and it's remote interviews and Zoom calls, and we've probably lost a wee bit of that, even domestically, just with the club managers and players. You go through the season, you build up rapport with people, and
Yeah.
it saddens me that we've kind of lost this season. We've kind of lost that a wee bit because it has been Zoom calls. It's been very, very limited. But listen, hopefully we can get back to that. Hopefully I'll get to go to Wembley for the Euros game, and then hopefully next season we're allowed to travel again and get back into games with the fans.
Definitely. I'm a transfer buff. I love the transfer stories. What's some of the ones that you've kind of that haven't happened that you've kind of reported on? Like, is there ones that stick out? Like,
I remember a strange one. In terms of one that I got kind of spectacularly wrong was tell you two. One that I was really happy with that I got right was Emerson Hyndman to Rangers at the time. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a bizarre story. You'll love this. Mark Warburton was in charge at Rangers at the time, obviously, and I didn't know Mark that well, just for pressers and that. You were getting to know him a wee bit, and you recognise your face and stuff. But I think we invited him. The Sunday Mail had invited him to one of our kind of dinners. It was like an awards dinner.
Right.
He said he was going to come, and at the last minute he couldn't make it. And he told me one day at Murray Park he was really sorry he couldn't make it. And there was absolutely no issue. No, it was fine. He'd something else had come up. He couldn't make it. I thought that's fine. But a couple of weeks later, I was in the office one Saturday and got a phone call. And I was looking at my phone. It was a number, and it was like Hertfordshire or something, some place down in England. And I thought it was one of these crank calls. But I picked it up, and it was a woman on the other end of the phone, and it was Mark Warburton's wife.
Uh-huh.
And she basically, I'd been trying to get a hold of Mark Warburton that day because I think, if memory serves me right, Rangers were trying to sign the boy John Torral.
Yeah.
So I was trying to get him that day to find out what was happening with Torral, and I think Warburton was actually in Spain trying to get that deal done. But I get this phone call from Mark Warburton's wife. I'll never forget it. I mean, you think of how hard it is to get stories and stuff, right? And the amount of work you put in. And she phoned me that day and she says, look, Mark's left me a message. He told me to phone you. He was really sorry he couldn't make your awards dinner. But it was just to let you know, he's signing Emerson Hyndman on loan for Fulham. He's left me a couple of notes here. He's 23-year-old. He's an American. He's signing on loan at the end of the season. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Honestly, I mean, I thought this is going to be a wind up. This is one of my mates has put somebody up to this. So it was pretty surreal. I came off the phone, spoke to my gaffer. Even he was asking, "Are you sure this is right?" But I thought it has to be. So I took the plunge, wrote the story for the back page, and sure enough, Emerson Hyndman signed, I think, that week. So God bless Mark Warburton. I'll not hear a bad word against him. Him or his wife. But although I did talk about getting one spectacularly wrong, bizarrely, a couple of years later, I think I wrote a story that Celtic were coming in for Hyndman.
Aye, that's right. I remember that.
And obviously that would have been a big story because he'd been at Rangers. And somebody at Celtic had told me, somebody that I thought I could rely on, had said, look, Celtic are definitely trying to get him. But I wrote the story. It didn't happen. To be fair, Brendan Rodgers was in charge, and actually, I kind of chinned Brendan, or I grabbed him after a game one day just to kind of not apologise, but just to kind of explain to him why I'd written it, because he'd had to kind of field questions on it. I think it's kind of next press conference. But typical Brendan, he was brand new. He basically said, "Look, it's no problem. We did have a look at him. No, it was one that we considered, but we're not going to go for it." So, listen, that's what happens. You win some, you lose some.
Brilliant. Lachlan, anything you want to add?
I had a good one a couple of years ago. It was Kirk Broadfoot. Know how he came back for St Mirren. Basically, I was in Prague just on a kind of holiday, right? And I got off the plane coming back, and it was at Edinburgh Airport. Never forget it. And obviously, you've got your airplane mode on. Turned my phone back on, and I had a message for a very decent source. And it says, Kurt, obviously the rumours were that he was coming back, because Alessio had left by this point, and I think it was Dyer that was in charge, and so all the rumours were that Kirk Broadfoot was coming back. I get this text, good source, Kirk Broadfoot coming back, a lot of nonsense, nothing in it. I was like, all right, okay. So I just put a tweet out. I didn't do a story or anything. I just put a tweet out just because I wasn't actually working because it was in deadline day. And lo and behold, the pictures started coming. I cut Broadfoot's motor at Rugby Park. I was like, oh, fucking here we go. 15 minutes before so I was just sitting hoping the announcement didn't come. 15 minutes before, Kirk Broadfoot, welcome back. I was like, oh my, the pelters I got was just, but I took it in the chin at the end of the day. You know, if you trust a source who's been bang on before, things change in football, and Broadfoot wasn't signing at that time, but then other deals fell through for Kelly, so then they've got to kind of go for these backup options, and I think football fans sometimes don't get that. It is an ever-changing thing, and beginning of this season, Daniel Bachman, he was meant to be coming to Kelly on loan again, and he was in the car on the way up. So, and I'd obviously heard, and I put out, you know, Bachman's pretty much he's coming back, deal pretty much done, and then he ended up getting a phone call for Watford. Gomez is retiring or whatever. Do you want to come and be the backup? And the car turned round, and then again, it's when I get wrong, and I'm like,
The problem is now, I think, see with social media, I don't know about other people, but I'm so kind of, you know, you're worried about putting anything out because people jump on it now. I mean, when I first started, listen, you could get word of something, a transfer story, and you could put it out, and listen, see if you get it wrong. It's all part of the game. No, people accept it. You move on. It's, you know, it's all saying it's kind of fish and chip wrapper the next day. Nobody really bothers. But now, if you put something out on Twitter and you get it wrong, you know, people aren't slow and letting you know you've got it wrong. So
even years later.
I know that's. I think that's where things have changed a lot. I think a lot of journalists now, I mean, you need to be really meticulous in terms of checking everything. You know, and I certainly, I think I speak for most of the boys that I work with. I mean, you wouldn't put anything out there unless you were absolutely certain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because of that, because you're worried about I don't care what MD says, you don't want to get that kind of social media backlash. Do you know what I mean? And as Lochlin says, it is unfair because things change all the time. Things change so rapidly. Circumstances change. Listen, it's a really good source, as he said. You know, you could get 2 or 3 spot on. It just happens to be the next one doesn't quite materialise for some reason.
You get right. That's the sad reality.
That's it. And honestly, it's getting tougher and tougher. And even getting stories now is becoming, you know, even more difficult because of social media and you know, bloggers. And I'm not having a go at people like that. That's where we are at the moment. But it's so difficult. I mean, especially, I'm not wanting sympathy, but as a Sunday paper, I would argue it's even more difficult because you know, when I first started, you would hear something on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, you'd be absolutely confident that, you know, it would last until Sunday. It wouldn't come out until Sunday. You would think. And a Wednesday, brilliant, got a great story here. It's me, you know, easy week this week because I've got this back page for Sunday. I mean, that absolutely, I would argue 99% just can't happen anymore because if you hear something a Tuesday or a Wednesday, it will be amazing if that's no by Thursday or Friday. So I mean, I tend to find with the Sunday Mail that in terms of news stories, you can only really try and go out and get news stories or, you know, try and find stuff out on a Friday or a Saturday, and even then you're just hoping and praying that it survives until the Sunday, and that's just the world we live in. I mean, I remember I always say to people, it kind of summed it up, talking about being at that Euros in 2016. The first game I went to was Sweden v Republic of Ireland, and the only kind of Scottish interest, or one of the Scottish interests, was obviously James McCarthy, who I'd known when he was up here at Hamilton, obviously. And I thought, I'll wait on him in the mix zone. He'll recognise me. I'll get him for a piece, for the paper the next day. Or it wasn't for the next day, it was hopefully going to be for a couple of days in advance. And so sure enough, he came out, he seen me. Nobody else was interested in him in the mix zone apart from me. But when I got him and he stopped, because all the players stopped, everybody kind of was drawn over to him. And I'm asking, obviously, because he knows me, I'm asking all the questions, kind of Scottish-related questions. But I can see there's mics and stuff in at the back of me, and there's dictaphones, and I don't know who these people are. And I just remember turning round to one of the guys with the mics and saying to him, "Look, mate, I'm hoping to keep that until Thursday. Say it was a Tuesday game. I'm hoping to keep that until Thursday." The guy just looked at me as if I had three heads. He just said to me, in his exact words, where he said, "Listen, mate, nothing holds." Now, that was his exact words, "Nothing holds." And I thought, you know what? You're right, because one of these guys with a mic will have some of that interview out tonight on their website or something. Do you know what I mean? That's just the world we're living in now. We just need to go on it.
Definitely. Obviously, yeah, all right. There's a few fan questions about a couple of things going on in Scottish football. You all right to give us a?
I'll certainly try my best.
Right, the $64,000 question is for a lot of Celtic fans. Where are we with Eddie Howe?
Great question. I wish I knew the answer. Listen, I think it will happen. I mean, it would be a huge embarrassment now for the club if it didn't happen. The amount of speculation that's been allowed to build up. We're led to believe that obviously there's been a hold up because he's looking for certain people in the backroom team at Bournemouth to join him at Celtic. Obviously, until yesterday afternoon, their season was still going. So I would expect things to accelerate now. I can only tell people kind of honestly, like last week, for instance, I managed to get to Eddie Howe's agent, which isn't easy. And at that stage, the reports were that it was all done, and he'd be there within the next couple of days. But when I spoke to him last Saturday, he was quite adamant that wasn't the case, and talks were still ongoing, as he put it. And that kind of took me by surprise a wee bit, because I was kind of led to believe, just with everything that I was hearing and reading, that it was almost done. So again, I tried to get a hold of him on Saturday and couldn't manage it. And normally when people don't get back to you or don't reply, that tells you that stuff's happening. So after Bournemouth's season finishing, I would expect things to speed up. And listen, like the Celtic fans, I'll be amazed if Eddie Howe isn't eventually named manager. It has taken too long. I think the fans wanted it done a lot earlier, quite rightly. But I think they will get their man pretty soon.
Will John Kennedy and Gavin Strachan be associated with Celtic next season?
I'd be surprised if Gavin Strachan was still there, because I think, as we're talking about Eddie Howe, we want to bring in his own people, his own men. I think various names have already been mentioned. And listen, you would expect that. I think even Gavin Strachan would expect that himself. John Kennedy's an interesting one. I mean, that's a bit more difficult, because I know how highly rated John Kennedy is by Dermot Desmond and Peter Lawwell. They want him to have a role at Celtic, whatever that role may be. Could it be as director of football? I certainly wouldn't rule that out. And whenever we've asked John Kennedy about it in recent weeks, he hasn't ruled it out either. I do think John Kennedy wants to be a coach and wants to be a manager, and that might hold him back for taking that role. But he is, he's embedded in that club now. He's synonymous with Celtic. He loves the club. He loves working there. So if an opportunity comes up to be that director of football and work alongside Eddie Howe, I wouldn't rule it out. If that doesn't happen, again, I'd be surprised if he stayed there as part of the coaching team. I think he would then look at where he could maybe go and start his own kind of managerial career. He obviously turned down an opportunity at Hibs before turned down the chance to go with Brendan Rodgers at the time to Leicester as part of his team. So interesting to see what happens with John Kennedy. But I know the club would really like to keep him there in some capacity.
It's interesting you mentioned Leicester and Brendan Rodgers, because this is the next one. Is Odsonne Edouard set to join Leicester and reunite with Brendan Rodgers?
My gut feeling is that he will. I think Leicester, it ticks every box. It makes perfect sense. I wrote a story a few weeks ago just kind of reiterating kind of Leicester's concrete interest in him, and I think over the next few weeks that'll intensify. I know for a fact that Brendan Rodgers wants to bring in another striker to complement Vardy and Iheanacho. I know for certain that Edouard is one of the ones that they're seriously considering, and as I say, it makes so much sense on every level. A player who knows the manager, a manager who knows the player. I think he's the type of striker that Leicester probably need. When I look at Vardy and Iheanacho, I think Edouard would give them something different. Rodgers knows exactly what he's going to get out of him. He's at a great age, a year left in his contract. Listen, as we spoke about earlier, things can change daily, but I would expect Leicester to be right at the front of the queue for Edouard when it comes to him leaving Celtic.
Brilliant. This is the last one, and then we'll pass it to Lochlin. I've got one for Lochlin. What is the situation with Lewis Ferguson?
Well, to be honest, I'm just reading like you're reading. Obviously, bids coming in. The bid for Watford coming in, it was rejected. Actually, I agree with Aberdeen. For a kind of newly promoted Premier League club to come in offering £1 million for,
it's shocking.
One of the best young players in Scotland. It's a bit of an insult. They should know. When you look at some of the players that have gone down there, I think of guys like McGinn and Armstrong and that, they should know that they're never going to get a player like Ferguson for £1 million. They've obviously tried kind of chance their arm a wee bit, and Aberdeen were right to knock them back. I think he's now handed in a transfer request on the back of that, so he's obviously keen to move on, which will be a big blow to Stephen Glass, obviously, who I'd imagine would want to try and build a team around. He's obviously brought in a few experienced players, but he'd want Lewis Ferguson to be part of that. So, listen, ultimately, I think he'll probably move on this summer, but the price will need to be right for Aberdeen because he's a big asset to them. He's on a fairly long contract. But when he does move on, I think he'll go on and be a success. I've said this a lot in the last couple of years. I really like him. I know he's been linked with Rangers in the past. A lot of Rangers fans coming on to me saying, no good enough and stuff. I don't agree with it. I think put Lewis Ferguson in a better team with better players around him. You really get the best out of him. I think he's got a wee bit of everything. He can pass, he can get a goal, he can play different positions. Get that wee bit of devilment in him as well, that wee kind of nasty streak in him that I quite like. I think you need probably at big clubs. He's obviously got great mentors and his dad and his uncle to lean on as well. So I think he'll go on and have a really good career. But unfortunately for Aberdeen, I think it'll probably be elsewhere.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for that, Scott. Lachlan, there's one for you. Greg Stewart, is he close to going to Kilmarnock next season?
Not for what I've heard. No, I've certainly no heard anything about it. I think there was certainly chat about him coming in January for the rest of the season, but for whatever reason that didn't materialise. I think a lot of that will depend on obviously what league Kelly because again, similar to Lafferty, Greg Stewart will know what to play in the Championship. I think if they stayed up, Greg Stewart's certainly somebody they'd be looking at because he revitalised the team when he came initially before, and it was a sore loss. I think if he'd have stayed that season, Kelly would have comfortably been in third, and there was arguments they could have been pushing closer to Rangers in second because they went through a spell of like 8 games no scoring after Greg Stewart left, and it was a direct correlation, and they still came third, So I think he would have been huge that season if he'd have stayed. But I've certainly not heard anything. I think Kelly, they're dealing ifs and buts at the moment with even their own players, let alone getting. I don't know if there's some. Is Greg Stewart, is he contract up this season? Or
He's finished. All reports says he's leaving Rangers at the end of the season. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I think you'd be more likely to see him come back to Aberdeen or something, to be honest. But then I suppose it's if they fancy him. I certainly wouldn't say no to taking him at Kelly again because he was a huge player. But I don't know. I think he'll probably, the way he left, he probably wouldn't want to come back with his tail between his legs. It was a strange move at the time. So it was
definitely. Right, final prediction. We've one more game left of that season before we get into Euro mode. Kilmarnock Dundee tomorrow night. We'll get round the team. What's the predictions? Lochlin, on you, fire away. Give us why are Kilmarnock going to stay up?
I don't know if I want to say 4-0 again. I think it'll be quite a tight game, and I think extra time's probably the most likely scenario. I think maybe a 2-1 win for Kelly to take it into extra time, and it's a lottery after that. And who, my heart's definitely saying Kelly to stay up, and I don't know if my head's saying that as well. I don't know. I was really impressed with Dundee on Thursday, so it's whether they've. I think a lot of it comes down to whether Dundee have got the bottle to kind of see the tie out. I think that's actually going to be the biggest factor in it. But I'll go for Kelly to win in extra time. Kyle Lafferty hat-trick.
Brilliant. Scott, what's your thoughts tomorrow night about Kilmarnock's biggest game, Dundee's biggest game? What's your thinking?
Yeah, I think I need to stick by what I said there. I think Dundee will score, and having watched the game the other night, I fancy Dundee now to get through. So I'll go for a score draw, 1 each or 2 each, with Dundee to go up.
Brilliant. That'll do for this week's episode, Scott. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on the show as our special guest. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Brilliant. Lochlin, pleasure as always. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you very much, mate.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, everyone, for watching. We'll be back this week with a special show on our end of season awards. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you soon. Cheers.